Here on Wham Baam Dashcam, we've shown you over 1,000 dashcam videos sent in by our fans, and we serve up 20 new ones every week. Today we're showcasing some of the craziest clips we've ever featured, so buckle up for Wham Baam Dashcam's Worst Drivers of Massachusetts, Volume 1. This submitter was on her way to pick up her kids from school when the driver of a Toyota FJ Cruiser was aggressively tailgating a driver in the left lane. As our submitter began to pass the Toyota, the driver suddenly swerved into her lane, shoving the front of her VW Jetta sideways. She lost control, and the car spun around until it hit a stop sign. The Toyota driver then fled the scene while our submitter called 911. Her husband went to pick up their kids while an employee of a nearby business gave her a ride home. She went to the hospital to get checked out the next morning. State police are still investigating and trying to locate the driver of the Toyota. Our submitter told us the cops went to the owner's last known address, but they couldn't find the owner or the FJ Cruiser. Our submitter was able to file an insurance claim with the other driver's insurance provider using the plate number visible in the dashcam footage. She's also hired a lawyer to help her with the case. If you recognize the vehicle or know where the owner can be found, let us know and we'll pass the information along. Keith was waiting at a red light when an ambulance began approaching from behind. The drivers next to him decided to carefully run the red light to get out of the way, but not carefully enough. A Chevy SUV was T-boned and spun around by another SUV driver who had proceeded through their own green light, unaware of the ambulance. The light then turned green and Keith continued, but he admits he should have returned and given a copy of his footage to the involved drivers. Here's something Chuck didn't expect to see. A BMW driver was speeding down a wet highway when they lost control and slammed into a guardrail. Chuck called 911 to report the incident, and later when he came back the other way, the BMW was gone. Chuck, who was also driving a BMW he's had for a month, told us this was technically an example of a BMW driver failing to signal while changing lanes. Don't be one of those BMW drivers, Chuck. Break the cycle. Andrew was on his way to work in morning rush hour traffic and was waiting at a red light. As it turned green and traffic began moving, a pickup driver from the left ran his now red light right in front of a Boston police officer. It looks like the pickup driver spotted the cop car and knew he'd messed up, but the cops weren't going to let him get away with it. Andrew said this happens frequently at this intersection, so seeing someone get caught in the act was priceless, and the instant justice made my morning. Riley was heading home when he watched a Nissan driver sideswipe a Toyota behind him before speeding off. Riley took down both vehicles' license plates as the drivers sped off, the Toyota driver in pursuit of the Nissan. He contacted the Cambridge police and provided them with this information as well as a copy of his dashcam footage. He hopes the Toyota driver was helped by this video, and he also wanted to shout out Vanessa, who watches our videos with him. Fiona watched one SUV rear-end another after the driver slammed on their brakes for a yellow light. Fiona wasn't able to hang around, but she told us she saw both parties out and walking around with no visible injuries. Pirate Mike was waiting at a red light in Boston, but when it turned green, the driver of a Honda ran their red light right in front of him. What he didn't know was that Pirate Mike was right in front of a Boston police SUV. The cop lit up his party lights and Pirate Mike pulled out of the way before the officer served the Honda driver with some instant justice. I wonder if getting pulled over delayed him more than waiting for that red light would have. Chris was on his way home when he was rear-ended in a tunnel by a driver who wasn't watching the road. Both drivers exchanged insurance information, and the other driver was found at fault for the collision. Repairing Chris's Toyota RAV4 cost $8,000. Chris wanted to remind our viewers to stay off their phones while driving, both for their own safety and for the safety of others. Jack was on his way home from a friend's house when he drove through a construction zone and narrowly missed colliding with an SUV. At first, Jack thought they'd made contact, and both drivers stopped to check for damage. Finding none, they both continued, but the SUV driver wasn't done with their creative driving. The SUV driver then drove straight from a turn-only lane before driving down a striped area, finally turning left to enter a gas station. I'm guessing they weren't stopping for a drink. Chris had just finished passing traffic on a highway and was about to return to the travel lane when an impatient pickup driver decided to overtake him in the median. But his driving skills weren't up to the task. After the pickup sideswiped Chris's Volkswagen, he immediately called 911 and reported the collision while the pickup driver fled the scene. After watching Chris's dashcam footage, the responding trooper charged the pickup driver with leaving the scene of a collision. The offender's insurance provider covered the repairs to Chris's car, which cost over $1,200. While sitting at a red light just outside his workplace, Joe's rear dashcam captured a driver coming up behind him hit a piece of road debris that sent it flying. We're not sure, but it looks like that's a manhole cover that somehow opened and then got left in the road. Thankfully, no other vehicles were involved. When Joe saw the driver collecting pieces of his car, he continued on. Tony was on his way to dinner with a friend when they watched a driver ahead of them suddenly overcorrect before slamming into a guardrail. Tony thinks the driver was distracted, then jerked the wheel when they noticed they were heading into oncoming lanes. Tony checked on the driver while his friend called first responders. Ethan's Toyota Camry was parked in front of his house when his dashcam captured a minivan driver taking a corner too fast before ending up in his yard. Incredibly, the minivan driver somehow avoided striking Ethan's Camry, but he told us this happened at 9:30 a.m. and he didn't get home until 6 p.m. That's when he discovered his lawn destroyed and debris from the minivan in his yard. Gary's grandmother was driving her Hyundai Venue down a Massachusetts highway when the driver of a red car went speeding past her before losing control and slamming broadside into a guardrail at high speed. Gary told us he thinks the red car was a Honda, but it looks more like a Toyota to me. Comment below if you can identify it. Regardless, his grandma stopped and called 911, then waited for firefighters to respond. As far as Gary knows, nobody was injured in this collision. He told us he and his family love our videos and watch them all, and he used to watch them with his father before he passed away. Gary, while we're sorry for your loss, we're also grateful we could provide you with some good memories of time spent with your dad. Shane watched one Jeep driver with a stop sign fail to yield to another without, and the result was a T-bone collision. Shane stopped to check on the drivers before giving them copies of his dashcam footage. Thankfully, it doesn't appear that anyone was injured in the collision. Colby was headed home after a few hours of door dashing when he turned onto a road only to be faced with an oncoming driver making an illegal pass across double yellow lines. Colby swerved to the side, allowing the oncoming driver just enough room to pass him without colliding head-on. Colby was understandably shaken up after this happened. A milker was on his way to pick up his brother when he was T-boned by a driver who rolled through a stop sign. Immediately after the collision, the other driver fled the scene. A milker called the police and made a report, then filed an insurance claim. Thankfully, he wasn't injured by the impact. Sadly, since fixing his Toyota Corolla would have cost over $10,000 US, a milker's insurance provider decided to total it instead. He's now waiting for the payout while working on releasing his band's first single on Spotify. If you want to show him some love, go look up Last Dream by Astra Mortis. For now, let's get back to the show. Nathan was driving down a Massachusetts highway when he had a close encounter with a Tesla behaving badly. Tesla man can't drive. When the Model 3 driver began merging toward Nathan's Nissan Versa, he laid on the horn and hit the brakes in an attempt to avoid a collision. He then sped up to get the Tesla's plate number. That's when the Tesla driver told Nathan he's number one. Nathan continued, believing they hadn't made contact, but when he reached his destination, he found a new scratch and white paint, confirming the Tesla had clipped his car. Colby was making a DoorDash delivery when he'd stopped behind other traffic at a red light. When he looked in his rearview mirror, he noticed a pickup truck inching toward his Mini Cooper. Colby and the pickup driver pulled into a parking lot after the pickup eventually bumped into his car. Colby told us the pickup driver was very apologetic. Thankfully, they couldn't find any damage, so they went their separate ways. Colby told us the DoorDash delivery was still on time. He also told us he's a longtime viewer and we inspired him to get his dashcam in the first place. Thanks, Colby. This submitter was on his way to school after waking up just 20 minutes earlier when a gray car pulled out in front of his Toyota pickup while he was going about 45 miles per hour. Thankfully, our submitter was able to avoid colliding with the gray Toyota after flooring the brake pedal and swerving into the oncoming lane. Eva was driving down a road with one lane each direction, divided by double yellow lines, indicating that passing traffic in the oncoming lane isn't legal. That didn't stop the driver of a GMC SUV. The SUV driver's speed was higher than his IQ, and when he tried to turn, he flattened a stop sign and clipped another vehicle before speeding off again. Eva told us she gave a copy of her dashcam footage to the hit-and-run victim. This submitter watched the driver of a Honda SUV dive across a gore point, completely illegal by the way, in an attempt to merge onto a highway. Sadly, another SUV was already there. A white Jeep was clipped by the impatient Honda driver. Our submitter told us both drivers pulled over to exchange information, and it's unlikely there were any serious injuries. Nader is a limo driver who was headed to pick up a passenger from the Logan International Airport. A distracted driver merged into Nader's lane, forcing him to swerve to the right and almost pushing him into construction barrels. He honked at her, but she didn't seem to care. Dimitri was headed home from a night at a casino with friends when he watched an SUV driver dive for an exit before clipping the back of a car. Both drivers pulled over and stopped as Dimitri continued. He told us this happened only a month after getting a dashcam and that he was inspired to buy one by watching our videos. Thanks, Dimitri. Jeffrey was driving down a Massachusetts highway when he noticed a Rivian R1T hauling a load of furniture. When the pickup hit a bump and the air caught the poorly secured load, it ended up not hauling it for much longer. A few pieces of furniture went tumbling out of the pickup's bed and onto the highway, where Jeffrey was able to dodge around them in his Mazda CX-30. They ended up stopping in the middle of the highway, as did the Rivian. Jeffrey had a great driving tip to share with our audience. Never assume another road user's cargo is properly secured.
Wham, bam, we got a Patreon man. Please support the show.